So thank you for joining me for this very important announcement. As many of you know, that in the fall of 2015, when I was running for election in Lake Melville, I knew that methylmercury, related to the flooding of the Muskrat Falls Reservoir, was an important issue for people in Lake Melville. It was an issue that I was committed to working on even before I was elected and appointed by Premier Ball as Minister of Environment and Conservation. Back then, I stated I was committed to a thorough examination of the science. My commitment has not wavered. It has guided me and my officials through this process to today's decision on Nalcor's Human Health Risk Assessment Plan. Okay, it's going backwards. This plan is part of a broad environmental effects monitoring program laid out by Nalcor as a condition of release from environmental assessment. The Human Health Risk Assessment Plan proposes to address conditions of the environmental assessment release related to 3 items: methylmercury, country foods, and human health. The plan's approach is through dietary survey and human biomonitoring such as hair sampling, providing baseline data for and from the people of Lake Melville. People have already been surveyed, and this work is providing very important information. Scientific monitoring of the environment and of species such as fish and seals is the key tool we have to ensure people have the necessary knowledge about the country food that they harvest and consume. Country foods harvested from the Lake Melville area are important for a healthy diet, and both the food and activities associated with harvesting are of great importance to those who live in this region. Monitoring will ensure Health Canada and the Provincial Health and Community Services are aware if and when methylmercury levels are reaching the Health Canada threshold. This will enable that agency to determine if consumption advisories are needed to ensure the protection of human health. As Minister, I find it vital that should consumption advisories become necessary as a result of the project, appropriate compensation be available to address the loss of those country food items. As such, today, I am accepting the Human Health Risk Assessment Plan with an extremely important condition. Should consumption advisories of country foods be necessary, Nalcor is required to consult with relevant parties representing Lake Melville resource users and provide reasonable and appropriate compensation measures to address the impact of the consumption advisory. As an example, should monitoring show a project-related increase in methylmercury in a particular species, such as seal, and Health Canada deems a consumption advisory be issued advising people to limit seal consumption, reasonable compensation must be provided. This issue has had our full attention for many months. As a regulator of the environmental assessment process, there was abundant and high-quality information available to me in making this decision. Some key points for me included the following: comments from Health Canada and Health and Community Services, valuable and insightful meetings with the Nunatsiavut Government and its researchers, inputs from Fisheries and Oceans Canada and its determination to request Nalcor to expand the size of the study area and add additional monitoring station further downstream in Lake Melville, and as well discussions and outcomes of the workshop that we held on the 22nd of March this year with a great number of scientific experts from various government departments and others. When we examined the science, we found the following: modeling of methylmercury levels in the HHRAP et al. 2015 study, what has often been referred to as the Harvard study, and Nalcor's own modeling predicted similar results for mercury and methylmercury going downstream. However, they did differ in how far downstream the effects would be detected. The HHRAP et al. Study provided insight into potential methylmercury production, and it is noteworthy in providing insight into mercury cycling in an estuarine fjord environment. As I mentioned previously, based on HHRAP et al., Fisheries and Oceans Canada recommended that the monitoring area be expanded and an additional sampling for fish and seals occur in the eastern part of Lake Melville. This additional sampling site further downstream will help determine the downstream effects in Lake Melville. As well, the most recent report received from the Nunatsiavut Government showed that regardless of any effort to reduce the potential for methylmercury, environmental and human health monitoring for Inuit communities downstream would still be necessary. These are positive outcomes from our scientific examination of this matter. These help to inform this decision today. When considering human health, it is important to me that Health Canada and the Department of Health and Community Services accept this plan. Both agencies have reviewed and do find it acceptable. As I indicated, monitoring will ensure Health Canada and Health and Community Services are made aware if and when methylmercury levels in country foods are reaching Health Canada's threshold. This will enable Health Canada to determine if consumption advisories are needed to ensure the protection of human health. Also a consideration was the Canadian Water Quality Guideline for methylmercury for the protection of aquatic life. The freshwater guideline is 4 nanograms per liter. The highest projected increase of methylmercury in Lake Melville, which was without full clearing of the reservoir, was presented by the Nunatsiavut Government to be 0.06 nanograms per liter. This is the 380% increase over baseline that the Nunatsiavut Government has been referring to in recent months. Even with this highest prediction of methylmercury, it represents a level 66 times less than the Canadian guideline. So while this is an important measurement and important context, it is the amount of methylmercury in food that is the most important measurement. What an increase means for larger country food species people harvest is best determined by monitoring. I would like to take this opportunity to also discuss reservoir clearing. This has been at the center of the methylmercury discussion, and it's an issue we fully re-examined after discussions with the Nunatsiavut Government. It is important to point out that the partial clearing plan for the reservoir that was proposed by Nalcor will result in effectively the same reductions of methylmercury as the full clearing scenario, which was studied in the project's Joint Panel Environmental Review. All vegetation will be cleared where it is safe to do so. This will see the removal of approximately 70 to 75% of the existing vegetation. As regulators, our department accepts that this clearing plan is the most appropriate and safe option. 100% clearing of the timber raises safety issues due to steep terrain. Mechanical harvesters and skidders are not capable of working on these steep slopes. Scientists at the March workshop concluded that removal of vegetation from a full versus partial clearing scenario would reduce methylmercury by effectively the same amount. The Nunatsiavut Government have also asked for full clearing, including topsoil reduction, or removal, I'm sorry. Based on measurements provided in a response to a Joint Review Panel information request, the amount of accessible soil in the Muskrat Falls Reservoir is estimated to be approximately 5 million cubic meters. And I would like to add that that accessible refers to approximately 50% of what might be there. As I say, this is a conservative estimate. To give you a sense of the scale, removing that amount of soil would represent a pile 1 kilometer in diameter by 20 meters high. Removing all soil would create additional adverse environmental effects, such as impacts on fish and their habitat, with the creation of what is known as a fishbowl effect, or sterilization of the reservoir. There would also be impacts on water quality by the elimination of a vegetated buffer zone, which would leave no protection of the Churchill River during construction. And this volume of displaced soil would create its own environmental management challenges. Experts who participated in the scientific workshop agreed that full soil removal is not considered appropriate. Even if these extraordinary measures were undertaken, monitoring for methylmercury would still be necessary to ensure we protect human health. As a result, I agree with the original position that partial clearing is appropriate. As regulator of the environmental assessment process, I find Nalcor's monitoring of downstream effects to be satisfactory to this department. Results of their ongoing monitoring work continues to be publicly available on the project website. Accepting the Human Health Risk Assessment Plan with the condition for compensation, as outlined, is very important. It allows my department to ensure that if the project causes consumption advisories for country foods, those affected will be appropriately compensated.